Hi, I'm Jennifer Smith, author of the upcoming book, The Unveiled Wife, and founder of UnveiledWife.com. And today I have the privilege of interviewing Lysa Terkeurst, who is a best-selling author, a phenomenal speaker, and also a wife and mother. And I am just honored to be able to share this interview with you today. Lysa, hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a joy to be with you.
Awesome. Well, I would love it if you can just share a little bit about yourself, how long you've been married, how many children you have, and maybe any exciting news you have coming up.
Yes, well, I have been married to my husband, Art, who is a restaurant owner and an amazing husband, my best friend. We've been married for, let's see, how long have we been married? I think 22 years now. Going on 23 years, possibly. That's terrible that I don't know the exact number. But when you've been married over 20 years, it's just all blessing, after that. I feel like for the first 5 years of our marriage, we sort of struggled a lot. We didn't sort of struggle, we did struggle a lot. And then the next 10, we were in the throes of small kids and all of that. And so now in the past couple of years, we've just been in this really fun place where our kids are almost all grown, and we're getting to spend a lot more time together, kind of falling in love all over again. So it's really, really fun. So we have 5 kids. Our oldest son is Jackson, and then Mark, and then Hope, Ashley, and Brooke. 4 of our 5 kids are out of the house now, either working or in college. And then our last one, our baby, is in high school. So that's really fun. Then we have 3 dogs and a mouse that refuses to leave our kitchen. So it's a very full household.
That's awesome. And I remember about the mouse from when I read Unglued. And I just love that book. It really helped me evaluate my responses, for how I treat my husband and just how I respond to situations. And that was just phenomenal. And you have another book coming out. What is that one called?
Yes, it's called The Best Yes, and the subtitle is Making Wise Decisions in the Midst of Endless Demands.
Mm.
And I'm really excited about this book because, I write about what I struggle with, and I have really struggled in the past couple of years. I really shouldn't say the past couple of years. I feel like my whole adult life, I've really struggled with certain things. One, my food issues. So I wrote about those in Made to Crave. That was all about the struggle of what goes in my mouth. Unglued was my next book. It was the struggle of what comes out of my mouth and my reactions to things. And then this book, The Best Yes, is really all about how I handle myself in the midst of the rush, this rush of endless demands. And I feel like some of it has to do with people pleasing. So I definitely address people pleasing. There's a quote in the book: I know I'm caught in the rip current of people pleasing when I dread saying yes but feel powerless to say no.
Mm.
So that's definitely a part of it. But I think it really goes deeper than that. There are deeper issues that cause us to get caught up in all the endless demands of our life. And there's a quote in the book that says, when a woman lives with the stress of an overwhelmed schedule, she'll ache with the sadness of an underwhelmed soul. So people pleasing addresses that overwhelmed schedule. The 2 words yes and no are the 2 most powerful words, and how we use those words determines so much about our life. So that people pleasing is part of it. Our overwhelmed schedule is part of it. But that underwhelmed soul is a really big part of it too. And I think when I'm caught in the rush of endless demands, and when I kind of set my life to the rhythm of rush, that's a statement that I use in the book, I just quite honestly don't like who I am. And I think I've got to, for the past couple of years, I've been really praying, Lord, unrush me, so that I've got a very full life, but sometimes no time to really appreciate or enjoy any of it. And I think I'm not alone. I think there's a lot of women who have that overwhelmed schedule because of people pleasing, because of, saying yes to too many things, whatever it is. But that overwhelmed schedule really leads to that underwhelmed soul. And
Yeah, I think a lot of women will relate to that. I know I do for sure.
and
Um,
just the sadness that comes along with that,
mhm.
And as Christians, we're supposed to be Jesus' joy on display. And I don't know, sometimes that's not really true of my life when I'm too busy and too crazy and chaotic.
Well, thank you so much for writing these books and being able to be relatable and transparent in your writing. And congratulations on this next book coming out, and congratulations on 20 plus years of marriage. That's incredible. And so I want to move forward, and I am curious to know, what is your favorite thing about being a wife?
My favorite thing about being a wife is I love having someone who I can stick my cold feet under in the middle of the night when I'm freezing. That's one of my favorite things. I think just having a friend, a partner, a comrade to
Hmm.
do this life thing with. I remember early on in our marriage, Art's grandfather, who has since gone on to be with the Lord, he wrote, before he passed away, he wrote a letter to all of his grandchildren. And those that were married, he wrote it to the grandchild and their spouse. And so Art and I got this letter. It was a 3-page letter. And the last page of the letter said, Mama got up this morning and made me a breakfast of biscuits and giblet gravy. That kind of cooking will go a long ways in a marriage. But here's what I really want to charge you and Art with. I want to tell you, life is more than the living of it. Now go discover it together.
Oh,
And I feel like that letter, the 3rd page of that letter, was such a profound turning point in our life. Art and I both read the letter so many times. We've memorized that 3rd page. As a matter of fact, I just had someone take the 3rd page of the letter and blow it up
oh,
onto
how
a
beautiful.
stretched canvas in our home. And I think as we get older, we're getting a little sentimental. So now all the artwork in our home has something to do with our story together. But the letter, the 3rd page of the Papa letter, is very important to us, and so we're framing it and hanging it in the house. But I think that has been my favorite part of marriage, is fulfilling this great adventure that God brought these 2 sinners together. And I think it was more than the purpose of just building a house, having a couple of cars, raising some kids, and trying to find happiness. I think there's a different purpose that pulses underneath our marriage, and that is we want to be people that impact the world for Jesus,
Mm.
and it's really fun to do that together.
That is awesome, and such a huge encouragement for, I know, women listening right now and on their journey of marriage. And thank you for sharing such a personal story, because it's so encouraging to hear. And I love your transparency. It's one of the things that drew me to you and your ministry. And the power of transparency is so vital for marriage, and I know this. And I would love it if you can share how you are able to be transparent with your husband and what that looks like in your marriage.
Yeah, it's funny that you would say it's so encouraging, because I imagine that there's some women listening today who are like, yay, that's so encouraging. But I think there's also women who probably hear, my husband and I want to fulfill this great purpose and tell the world about Jesus. And that sounds really big and really epic and really awesome. I don't even like my husband today. That's what some women are saying.
Yeah.
And so to them, hearing the shiny, wonderful side of my marriage could probably feel a little discouraging. And so I want to make sure that I address them, because I think there's so many women, and you know this
Mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm.
you're in marriage ministry. There's really a lot of women who are caught in the really hard places of marriage.
Yes.
And I think making sure to let people know that my vulnerability is, I think, an outpouring of awareness of my own brokenness.
Mm.
And especially my vulnerability in marriage. Art and I are very, very transparent that we have many growth opportunities. That's what we call them now. We call them fights, or some people call them fights. We call them growth opportunities. So Art and I are well acquainted with our desperate need for grace. And so our vulnerability about the hard stuff we go through, that's really the outpouring of our own awareness of the desperate need for grace. But our vulnerability with each other is something that's had to evolve, honestly. I didn't feel safe enough to be completely vulnerable with Art until later on in our marriage. And I think part of that reason is because I wanted him to think he was married to this awesome, wonderful wife. And so it was hard for me to say, I'm really struggling with insecurity. And what often would happen is I would throw out statements to try to make him fill up my insecurities, make me feel loved, fix all of my wrongs, and do all of that. And even a great husband makes a very poor God. That's not his job. So I would confuse vulnerability with this desire for him to be able to fulfill things in me that were broken and needed to be taken to God. So that vulnerability was hard early on. But I feel like now I've gotten to a place where I'm much more secure in my relationship with God and understanding what's God's job and what's the role of my husband. And when I really understand my husband's role isn't to fix me, it's okay for me to be vulnerable. And as a matter of fact, I think he's attracted to some of those less secure places in me. So it's been a work in progress.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I appreciate you addressing those women who may be hurting in marriage, and when I think about transparency, it can be very intimidating, or, I know for me personally, I can get very scared to go before my husband and share with him the deep places of my heart. Were there times that you were really scared to be vulnerable with your husband, but in the end, when doing it, good things happened?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably one of the biggest areas that I was scared to be vulnerable with my husband in is probably my food struggles. And he's naturally just such a fit guy. His greatest part of his day is going to work out in the afternoons at the gym. I would go to the gym and I would just want to cry. It would just make me feel so inadequate, and so I would just dread it. That's just not how I'm wired. I'm wired to sit down and enjoy a book. I could look forward to that all day long, but to go to the gym and sweat, I don't know. Crazy people enjoy that. So, admitting to my husband, I felt whenever I was on the heavier side of my weight and not feeling very attractive, or I was on the lower side and feeling completely deprived with my food. And it's not something that I felt like he was struggling with, so he couldn't really understand it. So I just didn't know how to be vulnerable to him. Plus, I didn't want the accountability of being vulnerable to him and telling him how much I was struggling with this, and then watching him eat, or having him watch me eat a piece of chocolate cake, and him saying something like, well, if you're struggling with that, you really shouldn't eat that cake. I didn't want that.
Yeah.
So I think part of the lack of vulnerability is I didn't want him to hold me accountable. And maybe, honestly, that's where a lot of us kind of hit a stumbling block. But when I was completely vulnerable with him, with my weight struggles, I had to educate him on what to say and what not to say, and not assume he could figure all that complication out on his own. So I would say, hey, I do want you to hold me accountable, but this is what you say that really helps me stay accountable. And this is what you don't say because it makes me feel completely defeated. And when I educated him about that, the vulnerability went so much better.
That's great. So kind of just providing boundaries or parameters for the way that you guys communicate with each other.
Yeah, and scripts. I mean, just straight up telling him, like, when you say, hey, you shouldn't eat that chocolate cake, that's going to have the opposite effect. That's just going to make me want to pull back, not be vulnerable, and go hide and eat the chocolate cake without you seeing it, right? So that's not going to lead us to positive things. But if you come to me and say, like if I say, oh, I really want a piece of chocolate cake, why don't you just say to me, like, hey, let's get a piece of chocolate cake and split it. And then you can eat a couple bites and I'll eat a couple bites, and then we'll just set it aside and walk away, and that'll be great for both of us. That's a much better way. But I had to literally give him those scripts so he understood how to do it.
Well, I appreciate talking about marriage with you, and I wish I could go on forever. But I do want to go into specifically talking about women of faith, because they're getting ready to kick off a huge nationwide tour coming up, and you're a part of it. Can you share a little bit about what Women of Faith is and how you got connected?
Yes, well, Women of Faith is a really exciting event. It's an arena event that goes to different cities throughout the country, and I'm very, very honored to get to be a part of this movement. And I really think that in the past couple of years, Women of Faith has gone through some pretty exciting changes. And there's new speakers, there's new lineup, there's new cities, there's new music. It's a really exciting new day at Women of Faith. And I think people who loved the humor and the stories that they were used to in the Women of Faith conferences in years past, they're still going to experience that. But I think there's an added layer of dimension that's going to be fresh and brand new, and that's biblical depth that is straight up solid Bible teaching, but presented in a very clear, easy to understand manner. Mm-hmm. So whether you are bringing your non-Christian friends who won't come to a church, but they'll come to an arena, and if you have to trick them and say you're going to a fashion show, I mean, who knows, whatever you have to do, right?
I'm sure there will be great fashion there.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be great fashion there. It may not come from me, but some people just have amazing fashion at Women of Faith. So it depends if my daughter dresses me or not. So that's always up in the air. But if you bring your I like to say pre-saved friends, then they're going to get a lot out of it, because there's life application that every woman needs, no matter if she goes to church or doesn't go to church, right? Mm-hmm. But then there's also going to be depth that if you're a serious Bible study girl and you love coming and getting inspired with rich messages that you know how to apply and it'll make a big difference in your life, but also really enliven your relationship with God, this is going to be a revival in your heart. It's just going to be amazing. So I'm really excited, honored to be a part. How I got to be a part of Women of Faith is they just asked me if I would come and speak, and I did, and quickly fell in love with the team. And we've gotten to be sweet, sweet friends. And so they just keep inviting me back, and I'm very thankful.
Awesome. Well, there is a beautiful lineup of phenomenal speakers. You included. Can I ask if you can share a little bit about the topic that you're going to be sharing on at Women of Faith?
Yeah, actually, it depends on what city you're going to go to. Okay. I have two different topics. One topic that I'm really excited about sharing is a new message I'm just now working on called Unrush Me. And I alluded to it a little bit earlier when I was talking about my new book, The Best Yes, and this ties right in with that. But the Unrush Me message is a message that I think women will sit there and say, me too, wow, I need this. And it's helping flip our perspective. And instead of setting our life to the rhythm of rush, set our life so the best of us can emerge front and center and stay there. And really, it's all about how you use the two most powerful words, yes and no. We're going to do a deep look at the life of Peter and how a conversation with Jesus unrushed him in a way that forever changed who he was and how he operated in ministry. So I'm excited.
Wow, I'm getting so excited. This sounds amazing. I can't wait.
And then there's another message that I'll give in some cities, just how the Lord leads. It also will be related to my book, The Best Yes. But this message is a message called One Wise Woman. And it talks about the importance of using wisdom in every decision that we make. So tucking wisdom into the sacred spaces of our life. And it's pretty phenomenal. This woman is found in the Old Testament. She's mentioned in only a few short scriptures tucked in the middle of David's story. And because of her approach, because of her assurance, her identity was so solid in God and who God said she was. And because of her wise advice, she saved an entire city of people. Phenomenal. We don't know her name. We don't know any of the specific details of her life, which encourages me, because then I might dare to believe that if I used her approach, her assurance, and her advice, that I too could become one wise woman. So
I love that. I love that. It sounds so just fulfilling and emotionally, like I can't wait. And I'm blessed to be able to attend 2 of the events. And like I said, they're nationwide. And so I hope that other women get to be as encouraged being a part of these Women of Faith events. I would love to ask if you have a favorite memory or, something funny that has happened to you at a Women of Faith event.
Oh, there's been so many. Probably one of my favorite memories that is just one of those hilarious, embarrassing moments. Is it okay if it's an embarrassing moment?
Sure. If you want to share it, yeah, go for it.
Sure. Well, it was one of my first, I think it might have been my first Women of Faith event. And Christine Kane and I were supposed to come out and do announcements together. And it was going to be, we were giving a World Vision plea for people to sponsor kids. And we were really excited about this. Now, here's the thing. Chris had the card with all the details explaining how to sponsor the children and how much the price was and how to engage with the packets and all of that. All I was supposed to do is hold a tote bag with all the packets inside. So I didn't have the information card. And when I get on stage with a microphone in my hand, I can deliver a Jesus message all day long and I don't need notes. But if you ask me to give announcements, I do not have the spiritual gift of announcements. So all details go out of my head when I try to do announcements, and it's terrible. And Chris had the card. All I had was the bag. Well, Chris gets up there and somehow just gets moved in the spirit to walk out into the audience. So she hands me the microphone, takes the card and the bag and all the packets out there. And so I am standing up on the stage in front of thousands of people and the spotlight's on me. And there's just dead air. I don't know what to say. The audience is getting really uncomfortable. So I know I have to say something, but I don't know how to instruct people. I don't have any information. So I'm running in my brain like, what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? And Chris had just given her testimony about being an abandoned child. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, I used to be an abandoned child. I mean, I when I was little, I was rejected by my father. I can tie my testimony to Chris's testimony, and I'll just go with that. So I said, I too used to be one of those children. I meant like Chris, but the entire audience thought I had once been a World Vision sponsored child. And the minute that it came out, the audience was like, like this, and I realized I can't take it back. And so I kept and it was hard and I was needing help and it was disastrous. The Women of Faith people came out from behind stage. They're like, stop.
Get her off the stage now.
But here's the good news. We got more World Vision kids sponsored at that event than any other conference.
So it was a divine mistake. It was just God orchestrating things the way he wanted to.
Oh, yeah, you could say that. Or you could say that I just straight up missed it. And now a lot of people live in the lie that Lysa Terkeurst used to be a child.
That is really funny. I love that. Well, thank you so much for, sharing all of this with us. I'm so looking forward to this Women of Faith event. I believe that it's going to help women draw closer to God, and I think that it's also going to be a huge investment into marriage because when we draw closer to God, we, naturally will draw closer to our husbands. And so I just want to encourage anyone listening right now to please, check out the Women of Faith website, the events, and join one because they really are phenomenal, like you said earlier. One last question. I love to wrap up my interviews with this question. If you were sitting in a coffee shop with another wife, what is one piece of advice you would use to encourage her on her journey of marriage?
I would say a couple of years ago, my pastor gave a message, and it was one of those messages that just really, really stuck with me. And I've thought about it so many times. So I think this is what I would say. Inside every man, there is a punk or prince, and the one you talk to is the one that will emerge, and the one that you encourage is the one that you'll live with. And boy, have I thought about that. Not that I would ever call my husband a punk, and I'm certainly not saying that your husband's a punk or any of our listeners' husband's a punk. But if you think about it, that's really true, And I think as we interact with people, I think all of us have maybe you could change the analogy to a beauty and a beast. All of us have a beauty. I know I do, but I also have a beast. And the one that people talk to, that's the one that's going to suddenly emerge. And I want to remember this with my husband. I want my words to my husband to be life-giving, even when we have growth opportunities. I wrote in my book, Unglued, it's not the absence of conflict that determines whether or not we have a great relationship. It's knowing how to handle the conflicts that arise. And even in the midst of conflict, using life-giving words. It matters, and it makes a big difference.
Thank you so much. And again, I'm so looking forward to seeing you speak at Women of Faith along with all the other beautiful women and people who are partnering with Women of Faith to bring these events nationwide. And for anyone listening right now, please follow Lysa Terkeurst if you're not already. You can find her at lysaterkeurst.com, and she's all over social media and just a huge inspiration, especially for wives. But again, thank you, Lysa. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.